Freddy and a Nightmare Freddy, let alone a Golden Freddy versus a Golden Fredbear. We had Fazbear Frights, Fazbear Pizzas, Fazbear Entertainment, Fredbear Diners, Fredbear and Friends, Missing Children, Crying Children, and bites from pretty much every decade. Then came Sister Location, where between the butter and bongos, theorists, myself included, struggled to try and fit together a story told by animatronics that lie, hand units that lie, animatronics that fuse with other animatronics, and animatronics that fuse together with humans, who then become purple and immortal. Needless to say, it was a lot. For me, what had become the scariest part of FNAF wasn't the jump scares, it was the lore. So you can understand why when the novels came out and offered what seemed to be simpler solutions, I hopped aboard. I started looking for more streamlined solutions within their pages, hunting for clues to the games in a place where they didn't exist, but kind of looked like they exist and probably should have existed, but didn't exist, and the only thing I accomplished in the process was making things more complicated. So in all the time that FNAF 6 has been percolating in the back of Scott's mind brain, I've thrown out everything that I thought I knew about this series, and I've gone back to doing what I do best. Darn it. Basic counting. 1 Freddy button, 2 Freddy buttons, 1 Foxy Toe, 2 Foxy Toes. Only this time, I was aided by knowledge of where the series was headed, as well as Scott's latest release, The Freddy Files. It's a book that many others dismissed as merely an elongated strategy guide to the games, but to me, it was invaluable at filtering down years' worth of lore into the details that Scott himself deemed as the most important to focus on. And this entire process of starting at square one has helped me to see connections I'd never made before, enabling me to create the thing I was most scared of. A timeline. A series of events that explain key breadcrumbs that Scott has left for us along the way. And the more I looked, the more it all started to make sense. And that's the plan for this video, and spoiler alert, the next video, to create a final, definitive, lore-based theory on the insanity that is FNAF. Putting to rest the key lingering questions in the first 5 entries of this franchise and opening the door for Scott to usher in FNAF 6. Since at this point we all know he's just waiting for us to solve the previous games before he releases the new one, right? Come to think of it, maybe I shouldn't finish this theory. Now, while I could sit here and rattle off hexadecimal color codes and animatronic design features to painfully hammer out the timeline inch by inch, no one cares. Trust me, I know I wrote 2 other versions of this script where I did exactly that, and both of them sucked. I was boring and confusing myself. It gets way too convoluted way too quickly when you dive into the details. But when I took a step back, I realized that the best way to understand FNAF at this point in history is to know that it's not a story about a haunted pizzeria, it's the story of a family. Meet the Aftons, a perfectly normal family of 5. Father, daughter, son, older brother, and mother. And the secrets of the Fazbear timeline are actually buried in the fates of each one of these characters. We begin with William Afton, the original purple guy, the father, the one who starts this whole timeline with a story that's all too familiar to us by this point. He starts killing kids at bear-themed pizza restaurants. It starts back in the 70s. Should have given him a big purple afro there, Scott. FNAF 2 flashes us back to these origins, showing us Purple Guy's first victim at Fredbear's Family Diner, before flashing forward to show another 5 victims of the Purple Guy in the FNAF 2 location, and potentially yet another 5 victims in the FNAF 1 location. And he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Literally, because his victims refused to stay dead. The soul of the first child enters the puppet, who then gives life to the other children by preserving their spirits in the bodies of the other Fazbear animatronics. Give gifts, give life. We've all known this for years, and Scott even confirmed it, but we had to start somewhere since this is where the story begins. But where the story heads to next might surprise you. Sister Location. More specifically, the mini-games from Sister Location, where we meet Afton's adorable green-eyed daughter, no name. Doesn't help that none of these characters have a name. You see, old Billy Afton isn't content with manually killing kids anymore. He's busy figuring out new ways to mass murder the youth of this nation, and he does what any good business owner ought to do, outsources it to the machines. He designs a series of fun-time animatronics with features specifically made for luring and capturing kids. We can see it on their blueprints: parental tracking, grouping, deter and misdirect, parental voice sync, and once again, he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Or kid, in this case. His own daughter, in fact, who is so excited by the circus baby animatronic that she ignores her father's warnings to stay away from it and falls victim to the claw. In true FNAF fashion, she done gets herself scooped, goes on to possess Circus Baby, and that causes the eye color of Baby to shift from blue to green. The tragedy results in the spin-off restaurant Circus Baby's Pizza World closing down in one day. The day it opens, and the fun times get stored, as the trailers say, deep below ground where memories sleep, just waiting for the day that they become rentals, one Afton down. Now before we kill off the next Afton child, let's rewind a minute to explain why Afton's daughter getting turned into human Froyo goes here, since this is a pretty extreme break from how most people understand the FNAF timeline. Evidence the first, not only do we see the animatronics actively moving around their respective galleries, but their luring and capturing features were built with the specific intention of them acting as free-roaming robots, something that we know was phased out in the aftermath of the bite of '87. We also know that this incident happens before Springlock suits get decommissioned. On night 4 of Sister Location, Baby traps you inside a Springlock suit and says this.
You're inside something that came from my old pizzeria. I don't think it was ever used. At least not the way it was meant to be used.
So Circus Baby and her pizzeria were from a time before the
unfortunate incident at the Sister Location involving multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures,
which prompted all spring locks to be banned, aka the bite of '83. More on that whole thing in a minute. But perhaps the biggest clues to the timeline placement of the Baby incident come from FNAF 4, what most of us have considered the first game in the timeline, where the crying child gets bitten at his birthday party while psychic friend Fredbear, he's here, he's there, he's everywhere, who you gonna call? Psychic friend Fredbear, promises to put him back together. Throughout the game, the crying child, Afton's youngest son, keeps hearing the words, "Remember what you saw," repeated over and over to him. When the game first came out, the best I could do was speculate about what this was referring to, but now I think we have our answer. This moment. His sister getting scooped. The crying child saw this happen, thus prompting his fear of animatronics. And we know he saw it through one crucial design detail that Scott included. Look at how this kid's nightmares of Fredbear materialize. The stomach mouth. It's a design detail that we all overlooked, but there it is, positioned in the exact same way that Baby rips in half to claw grip Afton's daughter. It's how a child would perceive that incident. And that's not all. It also explains why the Afton home has an empty girl's room in it, something that Scott clearly thought was important for us to see. So why is it empty? Because the sister is gone. She's dead. She's a victim of William's sloppy kidnapping scheme.
And just to be clear, I know a previous theory said this girl was Baby, but she's not. It was a predictive theory based on visual similarities that didn't pan out. In Sister Location, Scott very clearly showed us that Afton's daughter doesn't wear her hair in pigtails and has a different color of hair than the pigtail girl in FNAF 4. And we all know how picky Scott is about colors, at least at this point in the series. He learned his lesson after the whole pink guy thing.
That's not all. Ballora also gives us an interesting perspective as we move on to the next member of the Afton clan. Here's a big question that no one's thought to ask about this series yet. The mother, Mrs. Afton, where is she? I mean, don't get me wrong, adoption is a great thing, but something tells me that Slick Willie over here isn't the single father of 3 type. It was a question that I had never considered until the answer practically slapped me in the face while I was reading the Freddy files. On page 127, Scott draws a very clear contrast between Funtime Freddy's voice system and the one belonging to Baby and Ballora. Quote, Funtime Freddy's audio seems pre-recorded and relates to kids and birthday parties, unlike Ballora and Circus Baby's audio, which is more complex, end quote. It's an interesting detail for Scott to specifically call out that I honestly never considered. Ballora is much more aware of her surroundings, responding in real time to movement in her chamber and not seeming to rely on pre-recorded lines like the more rudimentary animatronics.
I can hear someone creeping through my room.
It seems like more than just a coincidence that the only other robot possessing this level of speech ability is the one that we know has Afton's daughter inside of her. Up until now, we've all been quick to write off Ballora as just this weird Rule 34 bizarre new addition to the animatronic